Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will lift you up in honor. James is saying to us in these 10 strong but short verses, there's a problem in the human nature. We quarrel from within ourselves. We're at war. We quarrel with each other because we have expectations of what we want and how we want to get it. We lust for the pleasures of this world, and when we don't get it, we're upset, we're angry, and we'll do almost anything to be fulfilled with the pleasures and the things of this world. And he says, if you want to get a hold of that, and if you're not allowing sin, if you don't want sin to swallow you up and literally suck the life out of you, suck the joy out of you, he says there's a remedy. There's a remedy from entitlement and sin. It's called humility and gratitude. Whatever happened to gratitude? Whatever happened to a thankful spirit, a grateful heart? I think it's been taken for a walk. I think it's been replaced by entitlement. In fact, I think our culture is saturated with this whole idea of entitlement. There was a speech given to the class of 2012 at Wellesley High School. David McCullough actually delivered this commencement speech to the graduating class of 2012. It was a controversial speech. Let me read a portion of it as he began this speech to the graduating class of 2012. He said to them, "You're not special. You're not exceptional. You've been pampered. You've been doted upon and helmeted, and you've been bubble wrapped and nudged, and you've been cajoled. You've been feted and fawned over. Contrary to what your U9 soccer trophy suggests, or your glowing 7th grade report card, despite every assurance of every certain dinosaur who happens to be purple named Barney, contrary to what Mr. Rogers may have said about you, no matter how often your maternal Cape Crusader, your mom, has swooped in and saved you, you are nothing special." You could feel a hush over the crowd, and tension began to build, because everyone there felt they were entitled to feel special. A chief executive officer of a major corporation is flying on a commercial airline. Because of mechanical problems, the plane has to turn around and come back into the same airport. The chief executive officer is in a long line. 50-some people are in front of him. He walks all the way to the front of the line with his briefcase in hand, starts waving his first-class business ticket, demanding to the lady behind the counter that her airline is at fault for him potentially going to miss a huge business meeting, demanding that he be put right back on the first flight out. And her reply, "Get to the back of the line. Who do you think you are?" His reply, "Do you have any idea who I am? With one phone call, I could call the president of this company, who I know, and I could have your job." Can you say entitlement? We're an entitled culture. Think about it for just a moment. We like entitlements. If we're poor, we believe we deserve help from the government. If we're rich, we deserve a tax break. If we're workers, we deserve better fringe benefits. If we're a banker, we deserve a bailout. I thought it was amazing and interesting that Larry Flint, the publisher of Hustler magazine, went before Congress to request a bailout for his magazine because an economy was in a recession in 2009. Go figure. If we're bankers, we deserve a bailout. If we're a farmer, we deserve subsidies. If we're a special interest group, we deserve a special hearing. It seems like today everyone wants an entitlement. I thought about my mother-in-law, who faithfully teaches, has for over 20 years, a 2nd and 3rd grade Sunday school class. She was asking them one day about compassion for others and helping others. And she asked her 15 or 20 students in her classroom there near Cleveland, Tennessee. She said, now, if there was a ball game on Friday night and you had a buddy that his mom and daddy didn't make a lot of money and he needed $5 to get into the game, she said, would you help your buddy get in the game? This little fellow named Josh said, I would, Miss Janice. I'd help him. She said, you'd give $5? He said, no, ma'am, I wouldn't give $5. She said, well, how are you going to get him in the game? She said, well, same way I get in every Friday night. I show him the place I crawl through the fence in order to get in, and he can come right on with me. See, he believes he's entitled. He said he doesn't have to pay. He just crawls under the fence. We're suffering, I believe, in our culture from an entitlement mentality. How do you battle that? Well, this takes us to our plain truth. James says it 3 times in 10 verses. If you're going to battle entitlement, if you're going to battle the ethos of sin, you got to battle it through humility. So let's share the plain truth and read it together. Ready? We can humble ourselves before God, or God will humble us. You can choose to humble yourself before God, or eventually, God will humble you. The wisest advice I've ever received as a young pastor came from an older gentleman who was retired at Lake Junaluska. And I got to know him because I was his associate pastor. And he said, Charles, he said, I'm going to pass something on to you. He said, as you go through ministry, you're an associate pastor now, but when you become a senior pastor, and he says, I've heard you preach. He said, you're not too bad. You'll probably have a decent-sized church one day. He said, son, don't let them give you a private parking space up near the front of the door. Don't do that, son. He said, humble yourself before God. If you'll do that, he won't ever have to humble you. Matter of fact, if you humble yourself, he'll lift you up. If you don't humble yourself and you become prideful and arrogant, it'll be real embarrassing one day when he does humble you. You probably ought to go first. Just humble yourself.